Hey, thanks for making it to Veterans Info Tap. I'm glad you made it. Look, there is a lot of pushing at the VA for change. And one of those big changes is the utilization and, growth within the idea of applications in the AI world, right? So artificial intelligence, how is that going to impact Veterans Affairs? How's it going to impact you as the user? What can we expect? What sort of things are happening at the VA with regard to AI? The headline that I found here on Wired that came out April 4th, 2025 is Inside DOGE's AI Push at the Department of Veterans Affairs. I'm going to share it with you. Before I do, though, I want to throw on another special thank you to Janice Fictum. Janice, thank you so much, really, truly, for those two amazing super comment, super chat things. I really do appreciate your support more than you know. Thank you. Very generous. I appreciate you. All right, jumping into this. Inside DOGE's AI Push, a DOGE operative at the VA appears to be trying to use an AI tool to write code for the agency's systems, among other proposals. Let's jump into it here. Hit the thumbs up, subscribe, share with a friend, all that good stuff. I really appreciate it. Every thumbs up and every minute watched really does help to spread the reach. Many hands make light work, and together we can, get out of the dark, right? Veterans have been in the dark for so long with regard to things going on, in the government and specifically within the Veterans Affairs. It's time to pull that curtain back. All right, so Elon Musk's so-called Department of Government Efficiency has been clear about its plans to fire tens of thousands of employees at the Department of Veterans Affairs. New Wired reporting sheds light on the specific DOGE operatives at the VA and the ways they're trying to infiltrate and drastically change the agency. On March 25th, tech staffers and contractors at the VA noticed an unfamiliar name trying to push changes that could impact VA.gov code. VA.gov code. It was Sahil Lavingya, a newcomer to the agency listed in the VA's internal directory as an advisor to the Chief of Staff, Christopher Cyrick. Lavingya, we're just going to use L. L's presence in the VA GitHub instance, a publicly viewable platform that houses projects and code for VA.gov, set off immediate alarm bells. It bore all the hallmarks of a DOGE incursion into the federal government. L, a startup CEO and engineer with no government experience, all of the sudden had power and was in their systems. Since then, VA employees say they have had multiple concerns following interactions with L. Beyond his GitHub access, sources who spoke to Wired indicated that L, who said on Slack that he wanted to digitize the agency, also appears to be trying to use an AI tool called Open Hands to write code for the VA's systems. One person with knowledge says that L had been given what's known as a zero account, which would allow him to be granted privileged access to VA systems. In a response to Wired's questions about his work at the VA, L responded by email saying, "Sorry, I'm not going to answer these, besides to say I am unpaid and a fan of your work." L is not the only DOGE representative at the VA, according to sources within the agency. The DOGE delegation also includes Corey, I'm going to butcher all these names, Corey Volpert and Christopher Rosas. Other known DOGE members at the VA include Justin Fulcher, who ran a telehealth startup that went bankrupt in the late 2010s, and Peyton Relling and John Koval, both of whom worked for Valor Equity Partners and appeared at the Social Security Administration along with the fund's founder and Musk ally, Antonio Gracias. These DOGE operatives appear to have no work experience that's remotely close to the VA in terms of its scale or complexity. The VA administers all the government benefits afforded to veterans and their families for roughly 10 million people, including education, loans, disability payments, and health care. L is the CEO of Gumroad, a platform that helps creatives sell their work and takes a cut of each sale. More recently, according to his blog, L launched Flexil, a tool to manage and pay contractors. According to his LinkedIn profile, L, which is spelled, by the way, Lavingia, Lavingia, I'm not sure, was the second employee at Pinterest, which he left in 2011 to found Gumroad. L is also an angel investor in other startups via SHL Capital, which backed Clubhouse and Lambda School, among others. Volpert, who is listed as a senior advisor to the chief of staff, is a graduate of the University of Pennsylvania. On a third-party job site, Volpert is listed as the founder of a startup called Lindy Live, which once offered social engagement for senior citizens, according to the document viewed by Wired. Volpert also has been reviewing VA contracts with what appears to be the intent of canceling those agreements. Rosos is the former CEO of 24 Hour Fitness and most recently was CEO of Allervi Health, an allergy and immunology startup. According to his LinkedIn profile, last February, he became the chair of the company's board of directors. He is also listed as an advisor to the chief of staff at the VA. Volpert, Rosos, and L, according to sources at the VA, were introduced by agency leadership in meetings as DOGE representatives. DOGE's actions at the VA are putting veterans' lives at risk, Representative Gerald Connolly, ranking member of the House Oversight Committee, tells Wired. Veterans, he adds, risk being stripped of the care they need and deserve because Trump and Elon have turned the VA to lackeys who do not know the first thing about what it means to serve your country. All right. VA employees have expressed concerns about the changes the DOGE staffers have already started to make to the agency. These people have zero clue what they are working on, a VA employee tells Wired. The VA has not immediately responded to a request for comment. Neither did Volpert, Rosos, Fulcher, Rawling, or Koval. L's past work, however, appears to have informed his present outlook at the VA, especially when it comes to AI. In a blog post on his personal website from October 2024, L discussed how Gumroad, which laid off most of its employees in 2015, had achieved financial stability, replacing every manual process with an automated one by pushing all marginal costs to the customer and having almost no employees. Today, humans are necessary for stellar customer service, crisis management, regulatory compliance, and negotiations, property inspections, and more, he wrote. But it won't be long until AI can do all of the above. Two sources familiar with L's work at the VA note that he appears to be trying to introduce an AI tool called Open Hands to write code for the agency. In GitHub, L requested to add Open Hands to the repertoire of programs that can be used by the VA tech workers, and noted in Slack that this was a priority for the Chief of Staff and Secretary. Open Hands is available for anyone to download on GitHub. Here's a quotation. They've asked us to consider using AI for all development contracts and have us justify why it can't do it, says the VA employee. I think they are considering how to fill the gaps of canceled contracts with AI. We don't really have approval to use AI because there is sensitive information in some of the GitHub repos, says a second VA tech worker who, like other sources, asked to remain anonymous. because they're not authorized to talk to the media. Theoretically, it could script something and pull out a bunch of data. Much of that data, according to the source, is stored and accessed through several application program interfaces. This includes information like the Social Security number of the veteran, as well as their family members and bank information, as well as medical and disability history. New tools also mean new security risks. Any programming tool or applications that you use in federal systems have to meet a bunch of security classifications, the source says. They worry that the proposed use of open hands has not been properly vetted for government purposes for security gaps that could possibly leave the VA system and data vulnerable. They're not following any of the normal procedures, and it's putting people at risk, they say, noting that a system failure could impede veterans' ability to access their benefits. These are people who have given pieces of themselves to the country, and they deserve more respect than that. A former VA employee who worked in the office of the CTO and asked for anonymity in order to protect their privacy says that open hands was not, as far as they can tell, really going to be sufficient. They said open hands was not, as far as they knew, a tool approved for use at the agency. When asked to evaluate it based on security assessment used at the agency, the person says the tool's ability to modify code, run commands, browse the web, call APIs according to its website was particularly concerning. That alarms me. That gives me Skynet vibes, they say. I don't necessarily want a computer to have all those capabilities unsupervised. Open Hands did not immediately reply to a request for comment. The source also says that AI-generated code can pose significant risk in general. I would not want a tool like this writing code on VA.gov because I think it would lead to a higher likelihood of bugs and therefore security issues being introduced into the platform, they say, adding that a buggy code could be easier to hack, introducing more security vulnerabilities. It could also accidentally access or modify the wrong data, including sensitive data. And even if the AI-generated code works well, it can be unmaintainable because it is so complicated that even the people generating the code may not fully understand it and therefore not be able to update or change it when needed. That part's scary. L has quickly suggested other changes at the VA as well. Sources say L asked if there was if there is a way to use veteran Social Security numbers or other identifying information to pre-fill customer forms with data from the VA system without the user being logged in. That data, according to the VA source, could include everything from their disability benefits and medical records and history. This kind of pre-filling requires users to be authenticated within the VA system, which not all of them are. A VA employee pushback noting that there are fraud and risk concerns about someone submitting a form on behalf of a veteran when they have not been established as their caretaker. Another employee noted this change would make it easier to submit fraudulent forms at scale. In a March 26th Slack message, L also suggested that the agency should do away with paper forms entirely, aiming at full digitization. There are over 400 veteran-facing forms that the VA supports, and only about 10% of those are digitized, says the VA worker, noting that digitizing forms can take years because of the sensitivity of the data they contain. Additionally, many veterans are elderly and prefer using paper forms because they lack the technical skills to navigate digital platforms. Many vets don't have computers or can't see it all, they say. My skin is crawling thinking about the nonsensical method of thinking of this guy. L's earliest activity on VA's GitHub is indicative indicative of the broader tensions at the agency. According to GitHub, pull requests and people familiar with his work, L sought to change the text in the website's footer where the agency lists its social media presence from Twitter to X. Musk renamed Twitter to X after purchasing it in 2022. Okay, whatever. That change was not as simple as it sounds. We wanted it to say X, formerly Twitter, or something familiar, says a second VA tech worker. This was because the letter X is on its own not big enough to be compliant with Section 508 of the Rehabilitation Act, which requires federal agencies to make their electronic and information technology accessible to people with disabilities. The single letter would be too difficult for someone to tap. Other VA workers suggested that they could use X.com, again in an attempt to make text more readable and accessible for disabled users. X.com is not an acceptable replacement. It must be X to be consistent with the other sites where we use the names they prefer. L responded, the VA website now simply lists X. Okay, in a GitHub, and I get it, right? I mean, it's got to be a bigger X if you want to try to click on it. Visually impaired people, pretty difficult. People that aren't familiar with the fact that it's changed to X. I mean, I get it. It's been a couple years, but there's always new people signing up for things, and people, aren't always on it. So I get it. I was kind of down for the X, formerly Twitter. Long, easy to understand what that is. But in any case, let's move on. In a GitHub ticket viewed by Wired, L also suggested abandoning Drupal, a content management system, a CMS system, that the VA uses for publishing updates and information about the agency and the services it provides on the VA facility websites. I think we should consider removing Drupal as part of our workflow, and all content should just live in the code base, he wrote. Sources say that the regular office administrators and health workers staffed at VA locations around the country are often the ones responsible for making sure that the content about their facilities are clear and up to date on their VA web pages. Instead of being able to log into the CMS and update the appropriate text or pages, L's suggestion would mean they'd need to go into the actual code of the website to make simple changes. Any mistakes could break the sites, and one source worried that such technical tasks would be too big of an ask for a non-technical VA staffer. I agree. There are over 1,000 VA editors. We're almost done. Geez, this thing goes on actually for a little bit longer. If you're still there, whatever. You're hearing me try to suffer through this. There are over 1,000 VA editors that work in the hospitals as administrators and other roles that update the websites for each VA medical center and hospital every day. They're not engineers. They barely can use the CMS at all, says the second VA worker, who was shocked by L's suggestion. This guy is suggesting we move all 55,000 plus pages of live content into the code. A week after L made this suggestion, the VA did not renew a contract for the workers who managed its CMS. This means sources claim that the VA facility locator, which lets users find a hospital or VA office near them, may stop functioning. This feature was managed through the contractor. The DOGE account on X posted proudly, VA was previously paying $380,000 a month for a minor website modification. That contract has not been renewed, and the same work is now being executed by one internal VA software engineer spending 10 hours a week. VA workers say they have no idea who this post refers to. Well, look, there's 400 and something thousand VA workers. Of course, you're not going to know all other 400,000 plus VA workers. So, true or not, don't know. I guess we'll find out. Sources say that L's casual approach extends even to such issues as meeting protocols. On Tuesday, during a Microsoft Teams call with Chris Johnston, the agency's deputy chief technology officer, VA tech workers were surprised when they saw that someone had started recording in the middle of the call. It created a stir, says a third VA worker who was in the meeting. In a chat box, L wrote, "Why can't we record? I think we should unless there's a legal reason not to," noting that it would be helpful for people who couldn't attend. Another person wrote back informing L that the deck for the meeting would be shared in a Slack channel for reference. "I think it's good policy to assume all meetings will be recorded," L responded. "The source who was on the call says that recording all calls is not the norm at the agency and that it is a standard practice to ask to record calls before doing so. I see more of a naive approach here than an evil," says the VA worker who was at the meeting. "If you come up in Silicon Valley, you really do start to believe that because you launched some startup and were successful, you have some kind of secret sauce, and everything outside of your startup ecosystem needs to be disrupted." But the worker says that L's backing by Musk and DOGE has created a culture of fear. Everyone is scared to death of him and takes every question or suggestion that way. According to his GitHub account, it appears that while he is at the VA, L is continuing to work on his tool Flexel, which now also bears the name Anti-Work. GitHub records show he has been working on the code even up to this week. The VA did not respond to the question about whether this is permissible while working with the agency. Government workers are allowed to take on some kinds of outside work, generally with agency permission, so long as it doesn't conflict with their existing role. Whew. Look, I'd be surprised if anybody's here now. I'm surprised I'm even here. Anyway, I guess all that to say is that there's a lot of almost butting heads, some disruption, which we all know, but it's kind of it's a little bit interesting, I guess, to hear it kind of unfolding from the VA tech worker position to the DOGE representative kind of aspects and kind of all of that going on. So anyway, if you hung on to the end, the password is Rooster. We'll see how many roosters show up in the comments. Thanks for watching. This was a long one, 23 minutes. You deserve whatever you deserve, whether it's a piece of chocolate or a piece of cake or whatever it is. You deserve that. All right. Thanks for watching. I really do appreciate each and every one of you so very much. Have a great one, and remember, if we don't take care of each other, something went wrong.